My 36F husband, 52M, asked me to flash some road workers. I did, and then he got mad and pushed me out of the car next to them. How do we move on from this? Been together 10 years, married for 6. The last 2 or 3 years, he started to show less and less interest in me. He does subscribe to a couple of OnlyFans accounts, which I'm not bothered about as it's no different to Korn. So I know he still has urges. I've tried talking to him a couple of times about this and told him I'm getting bored and frustrated, and he knows I'm willing to try anything in the bedroom, so if there's anything he wants to do to get him motivated, I'll try it. He just says, duly noted, and carries on with his day, which is frustrating. A few nights ago, we had friends round for tea, and we got on to the subject of commutes and roadworks, with them saying how their commute has more than doubled due to a road they use having roadworks. Carol, the wife of the couple, then says, "We've found a way to make it more entertaining though, haven't we?" to her husband, and they both started laughing. She then tells us that the roadworks are about 3 miles long with the groups of workers spread out to maybe 7 or 8 groups, and they are normally going 10 to 15 miles per hour, so when they get near one of the groups he beeps and she flashes them and they all cheer. I couldn't believe it as they seemed so straight-laced. That night when they left, my husband was saying how brave it is of them and that we should do it the next morning. I asked if he's sure. This is a man who didn't like when I posted a bikini pic on Facebook. And he said yes, and we even had cuddles that night for the first time in months, and he initiated for the first time in years. The next morning we were both of work, and as soon as he woke up he mentioned me flashing. I asked if he's sure, and it wasn't just horny talk, and what if the men don't want to be flashed? He said he's sure, and all men want to be flashed. We drive to the road, and we see a group of workmen, and my husband gets all giddy and says, "Are you ready?" I say yes, and he says, "Now," and beeps his horn, and I lift my top up, and they all cheer. We are going about 10 miles per hour when suddenly he slams his brakes on and tells me to get out. I was in shock. His face is red with anger, and he's shouting, "Get out, you fudging slag." I start crying, and he's leaning over me opening my car door, and then takes off my seatbelt and starts pushing me out. The cars behind are beeping as he stopped traffic, and he's yelling at the top of his voice. By now the workers have heard the commotion, and 2 of them are rushing over to help. I turn to look at them, and he pushes me really hard, and the top half of my body falls out the car, and I put my hands down. One of the workers is screaming at my husband and starts trying to open his door. The other worker is by me and quickly drags me out the car. He told me afterwards he saw my husband put the car in gear and thought he was going to drive off with me hanging out the car. My husband just left me. I was still only wearing a vest top and pajama shorts and my slippers as he'd wanted to rush out and do this. My phone was in his car, and I didn't have any house keys. One of the workers took his jacket off and wrapped me up in that. They took me to a cabin that was their canteen and put the heater on and made me a cup of tea. I was so embarrassed. This lot had seen my boobs and then seen me getting abused and then fell out of a car and then rescued me all in the space of 30 seconds. I kept apologizing to them and said it was his idea, but they said it's okay and it happens a few times a day and they are used to it, but I think they were just trying to make me feel better. They were laughing and joking with me and were all so sweet and funny. They asked if I wanted to ring anyone, but I don't know anyone's number apart from work, and I didn't want them picking me up wearing next to nothing from a building site. I asked if I could just ring a taxi, but they said I can't get in a taxi dressed how I am. The man I'm assuming was their team leader told one of them to drive me wherever I wanted to go, so I asked if I could go to my mom's about 5 miles away. They gave me some spare work boots to walk across the mud to the van, and 2 of them drove me to my mom's, and they were really sweet in making sure I was okay, and even walked me to the front door. When my mom answered, I was hysterical and crying, and they told her me and my husband had an argument, and he left me by the side of the road. My mom offered them a drink, and I tired to give them their coat and boots back, but they said it's okay. I told my mom we were driving to McDonald's and got in an argument. I didn't tell her about the pushing or anything. She drove me home and let me in with a spare key she has. I packed some things and went back to my mom's. My husband had been home as my phone was on the table. In the 5 days since, he's been ringing me non-stop saying he's sorry, and he don't know what came over him. He said he heard someone shout, "Nice pair," and it made him angry. My friends are saying leave. His are obviously telling me to give him another chance. I'm 50-50, but if I do stay, I'm going to insist on couples counseling for us both and sex therapy either for him or both of us. He says he doesn't want to involve other people in the relationship. It feels silly to throw it all away over a few seconds of madness, and I should have just said no when he asked me to flash, as I know he's quite insecure. I was blinded by finally getting some sex and attention from him and thought I could get more. I took the workers their jacket and boots back and also made them 2 cakes and bought them 1,000 bags of Yorkshire tea as a thank you. TLDR. Husband wanted me to flash, I did. He then physically pushed me out of the car but says he's sorry. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I don't think any relationship advice will do anything to help your situation, nor will couples counseling. This is definitely the sort of situation where couples counseling will only escalate problematic/abusive behavior. What you need, quite frankly, is a divorce lawyer. OP. That's the thought that's becoming more prevalent in my mind. I took pics of the bruises and scuffs on my arms and legs afterwards, and I keep looking at them and thinking, what would I say to anyone else who's shown me them? Commenter 2. You sound codependent on him and do everything he tells you to do to please him because you are terrified that he will leave you. Now you are in a situation where you did what he told you to do, but he ditched you anyway. He left you on the side of road to the mercy of strangers that you just flashed with nothing on you. That was very dangerous, and it makes me question if he wanted something to happen to you. This relationship isn't safe for you anymore, and that probably for some time. He's abusive. He doesn't want to do couples counseling because he knows what they would tell you. It isn't wise to do that with him anyway, because all that therapy is going to teach him are more weak points of you to take advantage of. Look for therapy for yourself. You know that he doesn't love you. That's why you accept all these behaviors of him. You can't make him love you by accepting his disrespect. You need to leave. It won't get better, it will get worse. Update 1. I took people's advice on this sub and a couple of others and rang the police to report the attack. I spoke to the workers beforehand who said they'd back me up. They arrested my husband and then released him on bail but told him he couldn't stay at my house, so he's gone to his mom's. After the argument, he told all our friends that I had cheated. I hadn't wanted to admit to people that I had flashed, but I felt like the tide was really turning against me, and a lot of people were believing his lies, so I wrote a long message with a description of exactly what happened, plus pictures of my injuries including scrapes and bruises, plus screenshots of messages he sent admitting he asked me to flash and admitting he hit me, although he did blame me saying if I just got out like he asked he wouldn't have had to do that. A few people apologized, most didn't, but I don't care anymore. I'm back home, and he has to answer bail in a couple of months. The police don't sound confident they can get a conviction, but maybe that's how they are supposed to sound. I've spoke a little bit to a lawyer, but I can't really afford anything at the minute in that way. Been a sad few weeks, but an eye-opener, and I don't feel any guilt for getting the police involved or telling people what happened. Just working and keeping myself busy at the moment. TLDR. I informed the police about the assault, and he had to leave my house. Relevant comments. OP on the workers who rescued her. OP. Luckily, the road worker was a big, strong guy. He picked me up and got me out of the way like I was as light as a feather. That's the bit that plays on my mind the most. He drove off a split second after I was out car, and the door was still open. I think in his mind, I was still half in the car when he drove off. Can OP go to a safe place and away from her husband? OP. I don't think I need protection. My brother is staying with me now, and he could beat up 10 of my husband with one hand. Plus, I feel like there's more deserving people than me who need a charity's help. OP telling the police what happened and how they have responded. OP. I did tell the police exactly what happened, as did the workman. Believe it or not, the police didn't care about me showing flesh and cared more about me getting beaten up and nearly ran over. Update 2. Okay, so I did not expect this. Like at all. After my husband got arrested, I thought things would calm down. You know, that period after the storm when you think you've got everything under control, only to realize you're standing in the eye of a hurricane? Yeah, that's where I've been. First of all, let me tell you about this weird phone call I got from his mom of all people. She left me a voicemail that started off all sweet. Oh honey, I know you're going through a rough time. But then, she dropped this bomb. You need to understand that men like my son have big tempers, and maybe you shouldn't have embarrassed him like that. You're his wife, not some Instagram model. What? Like, are we just going to gloss over the fact that he shoved me out of a moving car? I swear, the only thing more predictable than his mom defending him is how fast she started treating this like I was the problem. I deleted the voicemail before I could even finish it. Anyway, I was trying to lay low and just focus on work, but then my husband, well, soon-to-be ex if I have any say in it, decided to start spreading more rumors about me. Apparently, in his little revisionist history, I was now hooking up with one of the workers. You know, the guys who rescued me after he left me in the middle of the road? It's so beyond ridiculous. But the worst part? Some people are actually buying it. I had someone from work who I thought was on my side ask me, so, are you seeing someone new already? Like, excuse me? The ink isn't even dry on this disaster, and now I've got to deal with this? Oh, and the plot thickens. One of my friends who's married to his best mate messaged me the other day, saying they're worried about him because he's been drinking a lot and acting unstable. As if that's my responsibility? She hinted that I should talk to him, maybe meet up, help him get his head straight. Yeah, let me just hop right back into that nightmare. Pass. Hard pass. Now, about those amazing road workers who have somehow become more of a support system than my actual friends. I went back to drop off some more thank you gifts because, honestly, they deserve it after saving me from that mess. And guess what? They weren't laughing about the whole flashing thing anymore. Turns out, after my husband spread his new little rumor about me getting cozy with one of them, one of their supervisors got wind of it, and now they're being investigated by their company. Can you believe it? These guys, who did nothing but help me, might actually get into trouble because of this mess. I feel so bad about it, but they've all been really chill, saying they'll be fine, but it's obvious this has all gotten out of hand. And guess what else? I want to visit my lawyer again. Turns out I'm broke and screwed. Divorces cost more than I imagined, and with my husband having some savings I didn't know about, he's already lawyered up with some top-tier attorney. My lawyer said I could try to get more financial help from my family, but honestly, I feel so embarrassed that I've just been avoiding everyone. My mom, bless her heart, keeps telling me to be strong and take it one day at a time. But every day feels like a roller coaster and I can't seem to find the brakes. Oh, and one more thing. I've started getting these anonymous text messages. First, they were just weird things like, "Don't mess up what's left of your life," and "You'll regret this." But then they started getting more personal, saying stuff like, "You think anyone will want you after this?" And "You deserve everything you got." I know it's him, or one of his friends. I tried blocking the numbers, but they just keep coming from new ones. It's all spiraling out of control, and the worst part is, I don't know what's next. Should I move? Should I just pack up and disappear for a while? I've been thinking about taking a leave of absence from work, but my boss is already suspicious about all the drama. My brother has been staying with me, which is a comfort, but every time I hear a car pull up outside, my heart races, thinking it's my husband showing up out of nowhere, ready to cause more chaos. I don't know where this is all heading, but right now, it feels like I'm on this runaway train and the conductor is laughing maniacally while the tracks are about to run out. And I'm starting to think, maybe I'm the one who needs to jump. TLDR, my husband is spreading rumors that I'm cheating with the road workers who rescued me. His mom is defending his behavior, people are turning against me, and now I'm getting anonymous threatening texts. Feels like I'm stuck in a nightmare I can't wake up from. Final update. Well, this is it. The last chapter of this chaotic saga. Buckle up, because if I thought things had gone off the rails before, what happened next was like watching the train explode in real time. After the rumors about me and the road workers spread like wildfire, I was at my breaking point. I couldn't walk into a room without feeling like people were whispering about me, couldn't check my phone without some anonymous threat popping up, and every conversation with my mom felt like I was auditioning for the role of strong, independent woman who's totally fine, when I was anything but. My life was crumbling, and I was trapped in the middle of the wreckage. So, when my brother suggested we go away for the weekend just to get out of the toxic environment, I jumped at the chance. He rented a cabin in the middle of nowhere, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. No flashing workers, no gossiping friends, no husband lurking in the background like some unhinged villain. Just me, my brother, and a lot of wine. That first night, as I sat in front of the fire with a glass of red in my hand, my brother said something that hit me like a punch to the gut. "You know this isn't going to end unless you end it, right?" At first, I didn't know what he meant, but then he explained. I had been reacting to everything, always on defense, always waiting for the next blow to land. But I'd never actually fought back. Sure, I'd gone to the police, I'd blocked numbers, I'd ignored my husband's pathetic attempts at reconciliation, but I was still letting him control the narrative. He was out there, spreading lies, manipulating everyone, and I was just letting him. The next morning, something in me snapped. I wasn't going to just sit back and watch my life burn anymore. When we got back home, I made a decision that I knew would change everything. I was going to confront him face to face one last time. No lawyers, no intermediaries, just me and him. But I wasn't going in unarmed. I contacted the workers, asked if they'd back me up one last time, and to my surprise, they all agreed. They were as fed up with his lies as I was. So, we arranged to meet at a cafe where I knew he couldn't pull any stunts in public. As soon as he saw me walk in with two of the road workers behind me, his face went pale. He was sitting at a corner table with a smug look on his face, probably thinking I was coming to grovel or beg for reconciliation. Wrong. I sat down, and without even saying hello, I slid a file across the table, printouts of the texts, screenshots of his threats, police reports, everything I had. I laid it all out, and for once, I had the upper hand. He barely glanced at the papers. His arrogance had always been his downfall, and today was no different. He leaned back in his chair, gave me that smirk I'd grown to despise, and said, "So what? You think you can scare me with this? You're nothing without me." I'll admit, for a split second, my heart dropped. I had been building up to this moment, imagining that maybe he'd realize how much he'd screwed up, that maybe there was a shred of humanity left in him. But no, he was the same manipulative monster he'd always been. And that's when I knew. This wasn't about saving our marriage anymore. It wasn't even about getting justice. This was about me taking back my life. I stood up, looked him dead in the eye, and said, "You're going to regret ever underestimating me." Then, I walked out. Now, here's where things get wild. The next morning, I got a call from the police. Apparently, my soon-to-be ex-husband had gone to their station that night, drunk and furious, demanding they arrest me for harassment. But this is where karma finally stepped in. The officers already had all the evidence of his harassment, and they saw right through him. Instead of arresting me, they took him in for violating the restraining order I had quietly filed while we were in that cabin. The cherry on top? The road workers had filed their own complaints after his ridiculous accusations nearly got them in trouble at work. So, when the cops saw him, ranting and raving about me, they had more than enough reason to keep him overnight. The next few days were a blur. His mother called me, hysterical, blaming me for ruining her son's life. I hung up without a word. The anonymous text stopped. The rumors faded. And I finally filed for divorce. But here's the kicker. A week later, I found out he'd skipped bail. Disappeared. Poof. Like he was never even there. The police think he's out of the country, running from the charges piling up against him. And honestly, I couldn't care less. For the first time in what feels like forever, I feel free. I don't know where he is, and I don't care. He can stay gone. Let him live with the wreckage of his own making. The road workers and I are still in touch. They actually invited me to one of their birthday parties, which was wild, but in the best possible way. It's crazy how life works. You think you're flashing a group of strangers as a joke, and a few months later, they're some of the people you trust the most. As for me, I'm moving on. Literally. I found a new place, miles away from the memories of him and the life I had. I've reconnected with old friends, started therapy, and I'm slowly but surely rebuilding my life from the ground up. So, yeah, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if he'll show up again, or if I'll ever fully recover from the mess he left behind. But what I do know is this. I'm done being a passenger in my own life. From now on, I'm in the driver's seat. And wherever I'm headed, it's got to be better than where I've been. TLDR. I confronted my husband one last time, filed for divorce, and he skipped bail. Now I'm starting over and finally in control of my own life.